Jason, tell me where we are.
Adam, welcome to Ghost Corps. This is the center of the Ghostbusters universe.
The Ecto 1 is parked right outside.
Ecto 1's parked right outside. This is where it happens, and this is actually where we wrote Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, it is, really?
Yes, I can show you the room. Gil Kennan and I sat in here and wrote out Ghostbusters Afterlife. And the funniest moment, and right outside the window, it's not there right now, but right outside the window was Ecto 1. And all day we would sit here writing the movie, listening to tour groups come and talk about Ecto 1 and take photos with Ecto 1. And it was this constant reminder of, that's right, this is who we're making the movie for. Right. There's a relationship with this iconography. People love this car. 35 years later, people are still walking up on it and take a photo of this car. We have to make a movie that's going to make them happy. Best moment happens is, we were trying to figure out an action sequence. We went over to that glass case. We pulled out all the little action figures and little cars. We are laying on the ground like kids, like trying to figure out this action sequence. And my father walks in the door and just goes, "What are you doing?"
For him, it seems like 30 years before,
yeah, exactly.
like you're a teenager.
It was absolutely me with my toys as a kid. Yeah.
And I looked as he opened the sixth seal.
This is a fundamentally different movie-making experience than almost all of your other films. Am I right about that?
Yes, in every single way. Yes, in that it is the next chapter in a phenomenon that my father co-created. Yes, in that we made it in COVID, and it's been, sitting finished for over a year.
Yeah.
And yes, in that there's a fan base that loves this franchise. Normally, when you make a film, you go through the process of feeling as though you own it, and then when it's released, it's not yours anymore and it belongs to everyone else. This is the first time I've made a movie in which it never belonged to me in the first place.
Right. I'm curious about the COVID delay. One of the first things that I was thinking about was, famously, John Carpenter had this extra 3 months to cut The Thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious if COVID allowed you to dial into any parts of this movie with a greater depth, or if you just delivered it on schedule and then had to sit tight for a year and a half.
We definitely could have delivered it on schedule. However, COVID allowed us the opportunity to look deeper into the visual effects. This was a huge learning experience for me as a filmmaker. I had to learn how to direct one of these movies. I had never done a car chase.
Oh, wow.
I had never done anything with any visual effects that required dialing in how an animal moves or floats.
Right.
I had never really thought about that visual concept work. I'd always admired it. I'd, read Cinefex magazine my entire childhood. I'd, definitely watched all kinds of how-to videos on YouTube in which they explain how things are done, but I had never actually gone through the process of artists beginning renderings about what the climax of the movie might look like.
Right.
The creatures, the proton blasts, what the sky looks like, the way the dust flies around them. All of these things that I presumed that there were great artists who knew how to do them, but I had no idea how to take something from start to finish.
Your films up till now, you're directing them as you're going through, but with this thing like Ghostbusters, you're pre-visualizing concepts so far before you're actually getting to shoot. It's is it a totally different place to hold the thing in your brain?
100%, and I didn't realize how important those first visualizations are.
Really?
I think because when you look at one of those making of books and you're like, really, that's what they thought it was going to look like? And they travel a far way to find, to arrive at that final thing. And even Ghostbusters, you look at early renderings of Slimer or Stay Puft, and you're like, oh, they started here and they really kind of went somewhere. So I just presumed there's a travel. Yeah. We'll get there.
Right.
The ideas that we just nailed in the early renderings, they landed perfectly as the movie went. And the things that we didn't, there was a lot of searching.
Interesting.
And I don't think I realized how far you can drive off course and how big a deal it was in post to suddenly go, hey, we don't have this yet. And that's something about directing. One of the hardest parts of directing is the moment you know something is not right, and there's a part of you that goes, we can let this fly, right? And then there's a part of you that goes, no, the buck stops here. I am the one who has to stop the car and say, we went the wrong way. We're going back to the last the last intersection in which we were going the right direction, no matter how far back that is. And I will own that. And that becomes a dividing line between, you've seen movies where the director went, it's good enough.
Right. I was watching some footage recently of Vince Gilligan shooting the death of Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. And it took, I think, 17 or 19 takes, and they ended up using take 19.
Really?
And in the shots of behind the scenes, you see the first take, and the crew is like, yes! And Vince is like, no. And then you keep doing it, and Vince is getting more and more serious, and the crew is getting, and they're waiting for him to say, it's good. That is a really lonely position to be in.
Yeah, and it's there's two versions of it, right? There's one version where every take seems identical to everybody else, and as the director, you are noticing micro differences that you think are the world. And then there's versions where you get the just feeling that you've gone the wrong direction. And the experience of making Ghostbusters was simultaneously certain ideas that from their concept always felt right all the way to the finish line. And then things where we had an idea, realizing that's not actually how it should look or feel or work. And then getting into that conversation with your fellow artists and go, why doesn't this scare me? When I look at this, why doesn't it feel right? Is it the way it moves? Is it the way it's lit? And I learned a lot. I mean, like one of the simplest things, and this will sound so simple, stupid when I say it now, but two things on a visual effects shot I would have never known going into this movie that I now know. One, make it dark. You don't want to see the whole thing.
Right.
It should appear in shadow. You should play with the concept of how much you are showing to the audience, and if it's fully lit, then there is no magic.
And you want them to fill that in.
Yeah.
Right.
And two, do not let the shot go so long that they start looking for the mistakes, that they start looking for what makes it not actually real. And you can do that every once in a while, but you have to let things emerge from the darkness, let things be short enough so their mind is continually, you're constantly feeding new information to the audience.
We got to spend some time on set, and we were on set while you were directing Annie and Carrie and McKenna and Finn as they first see the house. And I remember watching you shoot that. I remember the first take, I thought, that was amazing. And then by the 10th take, it was a completely different universe. And I didn't see much going on except between the takes you were talking to the actors and you were watching and you were thinking. It was very quiet and collaborative, it seemed. What are you listening for when you're in a scene like that?
I mean, it's just it's feel, and that's the hardest thing about talking about directing, right? is you want to get someone to feel something. That's the magic trick, right? If you're a magician, you may want to get the card to appear, but as a storyteller, anytime you tell a story, you're just trying to provoke an emotion. And that is what a song does, that's what a painting does, and that's what a movie does. So as you learn the craft, you're going between pace and speed and the way the camera moves and the way the character says something and the way the music comes in. Every one of these is just a tool in the toolbox, and you are trying to master each one of these tools well enough so that when you dial each thing in, the audience member feels exactly what you want. And of course, that is the hardest thing to convey to everyone else on set, because they don't know why you're doing that. In the given moment, you arrive at somebody else's set, you see a moment, you're like, looks good to me. And you never know how it exists in the overall frame or what the exact intention of the shot is. These guys are absolutely adorable.
I love these so much. I love them in the movie.
We got our Reebok Ghostbusters shoes. These are the Terror Dog models. We got the little baby slime models.
This is crazy. That's so adorable.
But over here is where things really get special. First, I'm going to look at this.
That's a beta tape.
This is a beta tape, so it lets you know exactly when it was made.
Very short period of time.
Sheldon Kahn, my father's editor, found this at some point a few years ago. Now, Sheldon is just one of the great editors of the last few decades. If you can believe it, his first credit as an editor, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, swear to God.
Good Lord.
Yeah, he was up where they were shooting. They needed a second editor. They said, we need someone reliable who can cut. He had been cutting television, got the gig, first movie is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He edited Ghostbusters and was going through old videotapes recently, literally just a stack of VHSs, when he found this. This is the first screening of Ghostbusters. The first time anyone ever saw any audience ever saw the original. This is the test screening. It has all rough effects. It all has, scene missing banners. No Marshmallow Man, just drawings.
On beta.
On beta.
Good Lord. This is the real thing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So unless there's two of them.
No, he's foam latex.
This has been, I know, because usually with these, they don't last, they crumble, they disintegrate. But somehow this one has survived a long time because I did grow up with this in my house. Now this is really special. It says on a Ghostbusters line script, and this is actually the script supervisor's copy of Ghostbusters that she hand noted as they were shooting the film. Literally you could see this is the actual pen marks, and the way it works on a film as they're doing takes, these are the camera setups. That's 4 Apple, 4 Baker, 4 Charlie, and then she tells you, or he tells you, how far they got in a scene depending on the take. So this is letting you know. The little squiggles represent something. I think it's maybe something took longer or less time, or they cut something on a certain take. This is where the script supervisor would write in if Venkman said something different. So ad-lib lines for the first time would appear here because there needs to be a record of things that were taken out. On the left, you see the type notes of, okay, so here's every take and here's what happened. Take 1 ran this, take 2 ran this.
And print too, they're like listing which ones they're printing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, back in the day when you're shooting on 35, it's too expensive to print every take. So you see my dad was like, all right, skip the first 2, print take in 3 and 4 because they were good.
Wow.
The line originally was drop everything, Venkman, and then instead Stan says, this is it. This is definitely it. And you remember these times.
Yeah.
Gil and I, while we're writing the script, wanted our draft to appear similarly, so we were actually using this as a guide. There was also an earlier draft that we found that didn't have interiors or exteriors, and so as a rule, we didn't put interiors or exteriors in our set in our script, which our first AD hated, and we would just imply it. Like it would say, like in the action dialogue, we would say it's dark outside, and that was the only way you knew it was night. Because normally you would just put night up there. Venkman's written line, nice. Venkman's spoken line on set, Egon, your mucus. Right? Like, how crazy is that?
And she's gone back in and put this back in the typewriter to get this all in, too.
How about this? The books start to slide forward. Instead, books fall, high angle, books fall. Like, remember the bookshelf fall. So this is the actual archaeological document. Just casually here in a thin glass case with a cheap key.
I specifically remember reading podcasts lines and thinking, how are they going to find an 11-year-old that can get this kind of joke across? And Logan's performance is amazing, but everyone in it is so incredible. I'm curious about the casting process and about working with kids.
So I work with a phenomenal casting director named John Papsadera, who does all of Chris Nolan's films. He did my film, Men, Women, and Children, which people really don't know that film in my filmography, but it is Timothée Chalamet's first film. It's one of Caitlin Deaver's first films. It's one of the first I saw Ansel Elgort. He's a guy who can spot talent and can identify young people who can just really sing. And he found this young man, Logan Kim, out of Texas, out of nowhere, somebody who had literally just never done anything before. And you're right, even as Gil Kennan and I were writing the character of podcast, we knew exactly what he sounded like, but where was this 12-year-old in America who looked and felt and sounded and had that kind of confidence?
Yeah. I'm curious, when he comes on set, what was that process like of bringing him into the role? And then I'm guessing that he probably took it in places that surprised you, too.
I mean, the strangest thing about Logan Kim was the amount of confidence he showed up on set with. There were actors in this film that had done plenty of movies, but being in Ghostbusters was intimidating. Logan Kim showed up like it was his 40th movie. What are the lines? Okay, got it. You want me to go there to there? All right, I can make that happen. When I get there, do I look this way? Am I more confused or am I excited to be there? By the way, what is lunch today? It just was totally comfortable. Look, there's people who somehow arrive on set And it's just where they were meant to be from day one.
Interesting. You're not just casting an actor for a role, you're also casting how they're going to work together.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what is the rehearsal process for the kids to bring them into the narrative?
I always found that the rehearsal process is just spending time together. I don't actually rehearse. I feel like theater is for rehearsal because you want to line up these scenes to a point that when you put it on stage, they know how to do it. A movie is about capturing magical moments. There's only something can only be said out loud for the first time once. I believe enough in my ability. I believe in my actors enough that you're going to get there within a few takes. So I always tell my actors, learn your lines, don't rehearse it. You already know how to do this. I will not let you look bad. Just show up.
But trust you.
Yeah, and then what I encourage them to do is go bowling together, go to the movies together, go grab a bite together. I'm constantly, and I work with great producers, and what we're constantly doing is organizing ways in which we can spend time together. So you're going to get a lot more out of just going roller skating as a group together and joking about stuff and developing that kind of inner chemistry as people so that once you show up on screen, it really does feel like you've spent time together.
I'm curious about the first day you had Bill and Danny on the set. Like, what is that? Is there? I mean, obviously it's business as usual, but also I feel like it's an intense moment.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it was actually nervous. By the time the original guys came to set, we'd been making the movie for months, and you visited my sets before. They're kind of family affairs. There isn't a lot of yelling. There's almost no yelling. It's pretty low-key set.
Very little walkie chatter.
Yeah, people get along as a family. I've been working a lot with a lot of my crew, decades. Actually, I've known my DP since we were 15 years old, my first AD since my early 20s, my sound mixer since my mid-20s. Like, these are people who know each other. And now the original Ghostbusters show up, and they are strangely the strangers.
Right.
To set.
Right.
They're the ones who are arriving, having not been these characters for decades, having not worn these costumes for decades. I could sense that they were a little nervous to be Ghostbusters again. And then they just start riffing off each other. And there's a way that Bill just let something go that was not on the page. And Dan flows into that kind of, I don't even know how you describe the way he does his dialogue, but the sense of ease that comes from Ernie, and they become a band.
Right.
They are like a band, and they just need a moment to warm up, and then all of a sudden they're playing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it felt incredible. There's a moment where Bill goes, and this is his, not mine. He goes, count of 3, go on 2, 1, 2, blast. And we're all sitting there at monitor, and he says that. It's not rehearsed. He just says it. And everyone at monitor goes, okay, that's an iconic line. Like, it's just right there and then.
Right. Off the top of his head.
Yeah, and for the rest of us, we go, oh, that's what it must have felt like in '84 every time he said something special.
So I'm curious whether this makes you eager to jump back into the plasma pool of a big franchise film and take this to another place, or are you dying to get back to a quieter, smaller film?
I mean, my answer is complex, which I know doesn't work for camera. But the thing about Ghostbusters Afterlife is I feel like I secretly got to tell a very personal story in a very large film. And the idea of getting to do that again thrills me. I want to tell personal stories. I want to tell character-based stories. I felt like I really got the opportunity to do that. I feel personal about this family, and I feel that way about the Ghostbusters. There is a huge thrill to telling a story that connects with the world. I don't go a day in my life without seeing a person wearing a Ghostbusters t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
a franchise that lives somewhere in everyone's heart. It means something different to every individual person, but they all love it. They all carry it. I love to tell a story like that again, one where people already have this kind of relationship with it. What we haven't actually spoken about is how early you became involved in this movie. And that there's few people I trusted more simultaneously on the technical end as well as the film aficionado, passionate movie lover end. And I reached out to you early on when I was scared and intimidated about making this. And we had just written the script. And as I mentioned, my father read it, the Ramis family read it, and very shortly after, you read it.
Yeah, you came up to San Francisco and gave it to me overnight.
That's right. And we sat down for breakfast one morning. We started talking through the script, and you started talking to me about, how this stuff would actually work, how ghostbusting equipment would actually work. And there is a line where Phoebe is explaining to Trevor what a capacitor is, and is based on the moment in which you told me what the fuck a capacitor was.
There is a moment where you were shooting with McKenna and you texted me and said, here's the line I have for her. Is this the way she would say it? And I gave you 2 different reads, and then I think I texted you after, I've waited my whole life to be consulted like this for a movie that I know I'm going to love.
So I'm honored that you've been a part of this movie from moment one. And look, you were a perfect match for this film because Ghostbusters are scientists, Ghostbusters are makers, Ghostbusters are believers. They are kind of everything that you are. I think you are a Ghostbuster kind of throughout. So it makes sense that you would be part of this film.
Dude, thank you so much. What a pleasure. I can't wait till the world sees this movie.